Alright, CNT120, Chapter 6 Lab. We are going to set up a basic wireless network. Add a few features to it, but set up a basic wireless network. We're going to use one of the Linksys routers we have in our lab room. So first thing, do get one of the routers, get the power cord for it. I tell you here, don't power it up yet. We're going to cable it up and then power it up. So what you want to do is take the patch cable out of the back of your PC, plug it into the internet port on the router, get a new patch cable, and connect from one of the LAN ports on the router back into your PC. Once you've done that, then power it up, plug the power cord in. You'll need to give it a minute to boot. After we see link lights and everything showing up, we're going to do a reset on it. Get our reset tool, paperclip, and hold in the reset button on the back of the Linksys router, about 10 seconds or so. You'll see the power light blink, if you will. Let it go, let it reboot, and now it should come up with a clean default config that we'll alter. We're going to alter that. So once it's done that, we're going to check the IP address on our PC. So I actually have my router, I have it cabled up, I powered it up, and I even did the reset on already. So on my PC here, let's open this guy up. We're going to do an IP config. And since I've already done that, I do actually see that I have a 192.168. When we're normally connected to the college, we're getting a 172. So now that I'm getting a 192.168, I know the router I was going to say the router has given that number to me. I know that's where that's coming from. If need be, if you see a 169.254, do the release renew. I'll do the / release here. That'll release any IPs that it has. And when I do that, you'll notice all of it goes away. And then we can do a renew. And that'll ask the router. The router has a built-in DHCP server. It'll ask the router for a new IP address. And here, it literally returned the same IP address as before. But now I have an IP from the router. I have the IP address configuration. I even have the gateway address, basically the address of the router. So now I'm connected up to be able to start configuring this router for wireless connectivity. So we'll move on here to the next page. We're going to pay attention to this IP address here. This IP address is the address of the router. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to browse into the router. So I'll open my browser here, and I'm going to put that address right in my browser bar. I'm going to put in the 192.168.1.1, and I should get a splash screen that's the router, basically, configuration utility. Because we have reset it, there should be no passwords or anything on it. Or I should say the default should be on. So the username is blank and the password is admin. That's our default account on this guy. So we'll log in. I'm not going to save that. And then I should get a screen that looks something like this. Our routers are pretty much identical, but there might be, nuances. The screens might look slightly different depending on the version of router or the age of the router that it is. So just a heads up on that. All right, I'm going to try to squeeze both of these in here. We're now going to use this this GUI utility to configure the router. So let's go into the basic setup. So we'll go to setup and basic setup. So setup, basic setup. In here, let's give it a new name. I'll give it a name of like my last name dash router. Something like that. Use your last name. In here now we want to look at the local IP and the DHCP server. So here's the local IP. That's where that got set. I could change that if I wanted to. We're going to leave it alone. And here's the DHCP server that's enabled. So if I didn't want this to hand out addresses, I could shut it off. We're going to leave it turned on. That way, again, it hand out the IP address to this machine. We could plug in some DNS entries if we needed to point to a different DNS server that would be on our network. Down here, let's adjust the time zone to, right now we are in the Eastern time zone. So we're going to do save settings. This is going to do like a little mini reboot to apply it. So we'll say continue, and it should browse us right back in. Now let's start setting some basic wireless settings on this guy. We're going to get into some of the basic wireless settings. So wireless, basic wireless. So let's do wireless here. Basic wireless settings. We're going to leave the mode on mixed. That way we could connect with different wireless standards, if you will. Now these are G, so these are a little older. These are not super modern. So these are G. We need to replace these soon. Let's change the SSID here. Let's put something that we can find. We're going to be able to find this after we get it up and working. We'll need to be able to find it with something like our smartphone or our laptop. So I'm going to change this SSID. And again, let's use something like your last name and like your PC number. That way you can be able to find that. So right now I'm sitting Brown, and I'll do CNT, and I'm actually sitting at computer 2, so I'll use 2 right now. So Brown CNT02. So again, use like your last name, CNT, and your computer number. That way you can easily find this. Channels. In real life, we need to make sure that these are staggered. If we have 2 access points near each other that have the same channel, they can create conflict. So what you'll want to do, now we're going to be populating our room with a lot of wireless here in a short amount of time. What you'll want to do is at least talk to your neighbors and find out what channel are they using and try to use a different one. If they're using 1, maybe jump up to like 2 or 3 so you're not in the same channel. I'll put mine on 1 today, and I'll leave the SSID broadcast. I could turn that off. If I'm trying to secure my network a little bit, that is something I could turn off. That way it's not broadcasting out there. Somebody would need to know to look for this SSID to actually find it. Excuse me. When we first set up wireless at our church, we did that. We shut off the SSID. That way only the church members or the church staff knew it was there and could browse for it and find it. We'll leave it broadcast so we can easily browse for our SSID. So we'll do save settings here. Again, that needs to do like a little mini apply, so we'll let it do that, and then we'll do continue. Now that we have the basics in here, let's start adding a little bit of security to it. So now let's go over to the wireless security tab, and we want to put in some basic security. So let's do WPA2 personal. With that, we'll leave the setting of TKIP and AES for our encryption method. And we want to put in a WPA shared key. This is the password you plug in to connect to this wireless network. So we're going to use password 12345. I know that's not very secure, but we're doing it for ease of connectivity right now for our lab. In real life, you'd make this a little bit more secure. We want to make it easy for connectivity today. So we'll say save settings on that. The next thing we're going to do is the wireless device we're going to connect with, we need its MAC address. Now, you can use one of the laptops we have in the lab room. We have a laptop cart that has some Apple MacBooks in, it has some Windows laptops in. Feel free to grab either one of those. Please do pay attention to where it came from so you can get it back in the right slot and also get the power cord back on. Please, please, please. If you need to log into them, there is actually a sign on each door with the login credentials, with the accounts that are on there. They're not identical. So just use that if you need to. You're welcome to use your own laptop if you want to. That is fine. I have one of the MacBooks from our laptop cabinet. I have it booted up. What I want to do is I want to pull up the MAC address. I want to find the MAC address of this device. Now, we did this back in Chapter 1. We did this in Chapter 3. We even did this in Chapter 4. So this should be pretty easy by now. But I'm going to pull up the command prompt. On Windows, you know the command prompt. On Apple, if you go to like Go and Utilities, in there you should be able to find a terminal prompt. So I'm going to pull up the terminal prompt, and that works just like the command prompt. I'm going to do ifconfig on, because right now I have an Apple MacBook. And on our MacBooks, if you look under like EN0, that's where you should be able to find the MAC address. And I'm looking for, in this case, it says Ethernet address. I'm looking for that. So I'm going to make note of that. And what mine is, let me put it in a notepad here. I'm going to put the MAC address of my laptop, MAC of laptop. I'm going to get it handy. And this guy is A0:9B:9B:EC:83. And let me double check that. A0:999B:06:EC:83. Okay, that is the MAC address of the laptop I'm going to connect to this wireless network with. I'm going to keep that handy because what I'm going to do is in the next step, I'm going to add some MAC. I'm going to add another layer of security to our wireless network. I'm going to put a MAC filter in that only allows certain MAC addresses to connect to this wireless network. This is something you can do to help secure your wireless network. I did this for quite a while at my house. It can be a little cumbersome because you do need all the MAC addresses of like a phone, smartphones, tablets, laptops. If you have like a Nintendo Switch, it's connecting wirelessly, those kind of things, you would need all of those MAC addresses. So it can be tedious, but it is a way to secure your network. So on the wireless tab here, I'm going to go to wireless MAC filter. I'm going to enable this, and I'm going to permit only. I'm going to permit only. This is where you could boot a neighbor that might be trying to piggyback onto your wireless. We're going to permit only, and we're going to edit this filter. And I'm going to plug the MAC address in here, but it wants it in this format. There's no colons or anything. So what I'll do is I'm going to reformat it right now. I'll take this right here, and I'm just going to go through and get rid of the colons. That way I don't lose my number. I have it here, and I'm going to copy this guy, and I'm going to paste it right into my MAC filter. And that's now going to say this is the only MAC address that connects to this wireless network, and we can do save changes. If you want to add your smartphone or anything in there, feel free to do that too. Go look it up. You'll notice it added the colons back. That's fine, whatever. But there is, I just permitted just this laptop onto the wireless network. So I'll do save settings if I haven't done that already. Actually, I did. I will close that. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to do one more advanced setting. I'm going to look at the advanced settings over here. Actually, I'll do save settings here to make sure that did actually apply. And I'm going to take a peek over here at advanced settings. Under advanced, these are some additional things you can do. Take a look for the clear to send. Request to send, clear to send. We can actually adjust that option. Right now it's disabled, but I could add that in if I wanted to. Okay, so there is my basics on the router setup, and there's my basics on my wireless setup. I at least put in some. I turned on the SSID. I could shut that broadcast off if I wanted to. I put some security in, and I even put a MAC filter in that only the MAC address of my laptop would connect. All right. Before we're done with this guy, we're going to do a quick on our laptop, or actually on our desktop here. Okay, I'm going to go to my desktop now. On my desktop, I'm going to do another IP config, and this is the IP address we're getting from the router, from this wireless router. I'm going to do a quick trace to something like google.com, so we can actually see a trace. I think we've done this once before, but we can see it again, and we're actually seeing it hit this router and then work its way out to the Google or hack.edu server, whatever we're trying to trace to. We're going to let that run a second and just kind of note the results that we're getting as it's working its way out from our router out to the hack network, and then work its way out from there to like the ISP network, and then eventually out to the Google server, if you will. There we go, and it's getting there. So there you get a chance to see trace again if you don't remember seeing that from previous labs. This is a good time to do it because we know that that's the router we're connecting through. All right, I'll let that run a couple more seconds. I'm going to pause here after this podcast. When I come back, we're going to work on connecting our wireless device to our own wireless network. And there we go. We got a full trace the whole way out to Google. These are all the hops and steps in between us and a Google server out there.